I'd like to welcome everybody again to another installment of Likutei Moharan Learning. My name is David Shweki, and I run the website called ExcitingJudaism.com. We're in the beautiful Kalbach Shul here in New York City on 79th Street and West End Avenue with a large crowd. We were supposed to be live tonight, but there was a problem with the Wi-Fi. I'd like to thank Rabbi Naftali Citron for inviting us and hosting us, being very, very gracious hosts. I'd like to thank Julie Baller. I'd like to thank Peter Atkin and the whole Kalbach family for welcoming Rabbi Nachman into the shul. Rabbi Nachman is always welcome in the shul, that's for sure. Shlomo said everybody has two Rebbes, their own and Rabbi Nachman. Tonight's class is in, we want to have a full shlema for Surah Bas Sima. I was having some difficulties, so everybody should daven for her. Surah Bas Sima, a good friend of mine. Before we start, I'd like to show some interesting pictures here that are for sale through the Breslov Center website, or you can contact me at ExcitingJudaism.com. These are cool pictures, $5 each. Huh?
You can't see it.
Can't see it? See it now? Where? Closer?
Yeah. Way closer.
Even closer? This is Rabbi Levi Yitzhak Bender, who was one of the great Breslover leaders. And it's frameable. And then we have Rav Gedalia, amazing teacher. And then we have Rav Kochav Leibzal, Rav Avraham Sternhartz, I think the grandson or the great-grandson of Rav Nassan Nemirov, who was the really brought everything to America, and everything in Breslov is through him. Who was also the rabbi of Rabbi Rosenfeld, and all the rebbeim that I formerly showed. And then we have the current leader of Sfas, Rav Elazar Koenig. These are beautiful things to have around the house. Look at holy faces, sweet faces. Very nice to have around the house. $5, non-profit. They're really cool to have. Okay, so tonight's lesson is a pretty amazing lesson. When I first saw it, I was really shocked that Rabbi Nachman is speaking to me personally. It's an incredible lesson. This lesson is in the middle of a large lesson. It's Likutei Moharan, chapter 54, and starting at Vav. This is called The Crown of Breslov. This is one of the most incredible, action-packed lessons in the Likutei Moharan. Likutei means to gather, and Moharan is Morenu HaRabbeinu Rab Nachman's acronym. So I think we should start. Okay. Now, the way to subdue the imagination is through the aspect of the hand. The imagination can be a negative thing and can be a positive thing. The imagination was created in the twilight before Shabbat, and it was one of the things that was created without a body. It's related, it says in Pirkei Avos, 10 things were created right before the Shabbat, and one of them were the demons. And according to the information we have, the imagination has its source over there. It doesn't mean it's bad, but it has the potential to do tremendous damage. And as we know, the fantasy land that people end up with, it's very bad, and you can spend your whole life in this horrible fantasy land. And obviously, we see how big and popular pornography is. Men get lost in this for their whole lives. So this lesson is basically going to help people understand depression and addiction It's a really cool lesson. So let's start this off. So the way to subdue the imagination, the negative imagination, is through the aspect of the hand. So Rabbi Nachman, whenever he starts a lesson, it gets very cryptic. You don't know what he's talking about. It's just very heavy. It doesn't make any sense. So then as we go through the lesson, he's going to elaborate. It's going to unfold, which is the refinement of the imagination. The imagination is something very beautiful. You can be an artist, a musician. Everything you do is through your imagination. So it's the refinement. Now what does that mean? You have to do it through your hand. What does that mean? So now Rabbi Nachman, let's just look at the footnote 175. So here, in light of the great harm caused by succumbing to the imagination, one falls into animalistic desires and forgetfulness. It is essential that a person guard his memory from an evil eye and his tongue from slander, as Rabbi Nachman has pointed out. A lot of times you see a person, they go into fantasy land and they lose their identity. Has v'shalom. So a person loses his memory. He forgets himself, he forgets his friends, he forgets his parents, and ends up, God forbid, mental illness, schizophrenia, catatonia, things, people just forget who they are, God forbid. So this is really true stuff. Rabbi Nachman says, now what if a person is already involved in this fake world, in his illusionary fake world? So now Rabbi Nachman is going to explain that how the joy and melody, which is the aspect of the hand, has the power to take a person out of the negativity of their imagination. Getting very interesting here. So now Rabbi Nachman now is going to give a proof why the hand is the thing that's going to bring a person out of depression. Because now he brings a proof. Right? Always going to bring a proof. Corresponding to, by the hands of the prophets, I have been imagined. So Rabbi Nachman says in another place that the highest level of a refined imagination is prophecy. So when God would appear to the prophets, it would be through music, and their imagination would be flying, and then it'd get their prophecy. So what does that have to do with the hand? Rabbi Nachman now is going to explain that. The hand is the aspect of joy, corresponding to and you shall rejoice in all the effort of your hand, as it says in Deuteronomy. So it says joy here subdues the imagination. I'm in this footnote 177. Joy subdues the imagination because when a person is happy, he's able to take a hold and control his imagination. He grabs it figuratively. He's in control. Rabbi Nosson goes on to say that the hands correspond to the two tablets, the 10 fingers correspond to the 10 commandments, and the hands are called doers. Because whatever a person does with his hands, that's what he eats. Whether that's writing, typing, drawing, everything is on the computer. Everything is works through the hand. The person's whole life is through his hands. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, now Rabbi Nachman now is going to go to the next level. What does it mean, hand? This is also the aspect of musical instruments that are played with the hand. Rabbi Nachman now is going to the next level, talking about music. First he says that when you do stuff with your hands, you're going to bring yourself to joy. Now he's saying musical instruments played by the hand. Now watch what he says. By musical instruments played by the hand, by means of which prophecy would come to rest upon the prophets. As it is written, get me a musician. So now we're going to go into the world of music. Okay. Now Rabbi Nachman is going to explain something really beautiful here. For the instrument is a gathering of the energy of the ruach. An instrument gathers the wind.
Do you play an instrument?
Play guitar, play drums. Now, he's going to explain what is ruach, what is wind, what is this air. Rabbi Nachman explains now, air is a mixture of good and evil. Just like everything in the world is a mixture of good and evil, everything is a mix. Because Adam and Eve, when they did what they did, they mixed up. The snake was not involved in anything. He was evil, but in his own way, he was separate from everything. And good and evil was still separated in the Garden of Eden. Even though evil existed, it was separate. They were naked. They didn't know what that meant. They were like babies, and evil and good was separate. When they did their sin, whatever it was, now evil and good got mixed up. Rabbi Nachman explained now, air is mixed up with good and evil also. What does that mean? I don't mean pollution. I mean spiritual air. Okay. 181. Okay. Now Rabbi Nachman says there is an air of depression, a gloomy air, an air that's unhealthy, that's evil. In other words, when you go to a place, this place is eerie, it's a little creepy in here. I got a creepy feeling because something's weird. Just feel it. So, and then it says, now what's the proof that air can be evil? It says Shaul, says an evil ruach began to terrify him. King Saul is the first recorded incident of mental illness in the Bible. Yeah, he was the first one to have heavy depression. 182. Why? King Saul was supposed to do a few things. He didn't do it. King David was anointed. He took over. King Saul got super depressed, and which is called this heavy depression. So the king's minister says, let's bring a musician to get your spirits up. So even though David was made the king, he was done in secret. Saul didn't know about it. So they brought David, who was known as the great musician in Israel, to play the music and to calm down Saul. Okay. That's 15 minutes already?
16.
Really? Okay.